One of the world's most prestigious film festivals, the Cannes Film Festival in southeastern France, is approaching its finale. Among the many highly anticipated films unveiled one by one on this global stage, Korean films have also drawn significant international attention there. Let's discuss the presence and achievements of Korean cinema at the 79th Cannes Film Festival with filmmaker and Professor Jae So of Seoul Institute of the Arts. Welcome back, Professor So.
Hello, Professor So.
Good to be here.
All right, Professor So. At this year's Cannes Film Festival, it looks like Korea's presence is pretty big there, especially when it comes to genre films. So how do you see the atmosphere currently, and also why do you think Korean films are drawing significant attention?
Well, Cannes Film Festival has been very kind of friendly towards Asian cinema, especially Korean cinema, for a long time. And this year we have like 4 films there. We have Hope, a movie called Hope, another one called The Colony, and then there's a movie called Dora, not to be confused with the animation, a Korean version, and then Rhapsody of a Bird. So we have 4 films there. And then the other special thing is the jury president happens to be a Korean director, one of our best, Chan-wook. So already Cannes is sort of primed for Korean cinema before we get started. And as you mentioned, the genre films this year have been very strong. So we have basically Hope, which is about sort of science fiction, alien type of like disaster movie, and then Colony, which is like a zombie movie that's happening. So it's kind of like a weird situation where like 2 big genres have like collided together at the Cannes Film Festival.
Right.
Let's go into detail about one of my favorite horror genres, which is zombie. I love zombie movies, and let's talk about, obviously, Yeon Sang-ho's Colony, which premiered in the non-competition section. The film has received great reactions from Cannes and has even been described as presenting a new style of zombie cinema. I haven't gotten around to see it, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's also weirdly attracted a lot of viewers to go around the festival walking like zombies for some reason. But how did you interpret this response?
Well, I went to see it actually. You saw it too, right?
Yes, I did.
So it was the opening night yesterday, so I went to see it. And yeah, it's a very unusual film for a genre. But we have to go back to Yeon Sang-ho, the director. He directed Train to Busan, which kind of like basically changed the zombie lore by kind of creating an Asian or a Korean style zombie movie. And he sort of like made it more sophisticated this time because it's sort of like in the AI era. So now the zombies have a collective mind. They're able to like sort of evolve and bring in like signals from around. They're not like these like really, dumb, mindless monsters, but they have a collective sort of intelligence akin to like ants. It's actually said in the movie itself. So it's a real big twist, and also the fact that the audiences just saw it as like this. It was a midnight screening. I heard after the screening, it was like a 7-minute standing ovation. Cannes very famous for these applauses, and apparently the audiences really took to it because it's not just, again, Yeon Sang-ho's not making like a monster movie or horror movie per se, but all of his movies have this genre like with a spin on it, usually about Korean society or about just like what's happening that's culturally relevant. So I think this movie really hit a chord, and hopefully, I heard it's doing really well here in Korea as well as a result of Cannes, excellent reviews.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, as you mentioned, director Yeon Sang-ho, he has kind of established a Korean-style zombie genre. And apart from the things that you just mentioned, could you elaborate on what is different in this one? Any particular elements that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, just the zombies themselves, usually zombies are like, they walk a certain way, they look menacing, they make these growling sounds. You have that, but I found the sort of the acrobatics of these zombies to be wonderful. I mean, we just had 20 years later where you have these zombies running, but more than running zombies, I like these zombies that are, when they fall down backwards, they fall and twist their body and attack again. And they also exude this kind of like white, kind of milky substance that's everywhere. And it was really like gooey. The whole feeling was like kind of like akin to like watching something in an amusement park or something like that. And I thought it was really funny because I happen to be a professor.
Yes.
And in the story, there's so many professors. You have, like the professor's the first one that gets bitten. And then you also have Hugo-an, who's the evil guy. He's like, I guess he's a doctor with PhD. and then the main character played by Chun Jin is a professor, and her friend is a professor. So I was almost joking, like this movie could be called Bad Professor or something like that. So just, but again, Yeon Sang was kind of taking sort of authority figures like professors or policemen or government officials, and sort of showing how these people are like, they have a lot of power in society, and they make wrong choices or moral choices that affect everybody. So it's a really effective way of using genre to talk about what's happening in Korean society, or any society for that matter.
Right. Professor So, you just mentioned the acrobatic moves of the zombies. I also was fascinated by how some of the zombies, like 3 or 4 zombies, were attached to each other and moved together. That was fascinating.
Yeah, a wall of them.
Exactly, yeah. So that too, there was also a wall of a lot of zombies together. But I also have to agree with you that there was a focus on how a slight, maybe also critical points regarding maybe governments and policemen, as you said, and also I liked how you had that analogy of bad professors.
Yeah.
But of course, there are bad and good professors in the
yes.
movie. So yeah, I really had also have to mention, as I watched it on day one, it was a very great movie. Just just as a regular watcher as well, I have to say.
Right. And obviously it shows here in Korea already, as I said earlier in K-Enter, that it rose to #1 spot in the Korean box office basically straight away as soon as it was released. You did mention a little bit earlier that it could be some influence from Khan. Like, could you probably elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's been on social media and the news that Yeon Sang was there with his stars, Chun Ji-yeon, everybody that's starring in the movie, including Kyu Gyo-an. So there was a buzz about that movie, the fact that it had a 7-minute standing ovation. These things are like, everybody starts to know. So I think that synergy of releasing at Cannes worked with the release now. And basically yesterday was the opening night, but they already had 20,000, 200,000 audience members flock to it. And that's actually a score that's faster than even the King's Warden or like what's happening with the Devil Wears Prada 2, movies like that are big hits in Korea, and it's on pace to do really well. So I think in a case where nowadays, it used to be in the past where if you sent a movie to Cannes or Venice or Berlin, it was just a separate item where Korean film wins an award, but now social media, everybody's aware of it on the internet. If you hit the YouTube, all of that's on there, all the actors talking about it, and I think it's really helping to sort of generate interest in the audiences here domestically.
All right, now let's shift over to the other big movie that's been in the headlines, Hope, by director Na Hong-jin. And this is actually the only Korean movie that's in the competition section at Cannes. And it did receive some divided responses. And I think some are even calling it a bold and provocative masterpiece. So what are your expectations of it?
Well, absolutely. I think Na Hong-jin's a director that was already kind of going in this direction. His movies started with The Chaser, and ended with I think the last one domestically was The Wailing, which is another kind of genre movie. Some call it also a zombie movie type of thing. But this time it's Hope is a sci-fi movie based in sort of like in a little village right up against the North Korean border. So you already have this kind of like international intrigue going on, and it also has sci-fi elements in it. And I think, as you mentioned, I think Yeon Sang-won's film got a 7-minute standing ovation. After the screening at Cannes, it got a 6-minute standing ovation. So
I heard there were some different figures, actually, Walter.
Yeah,
we reported on that before.
Like 6, 7, 5.
Right. 6, 7.
Yeah, exactly, 6, 7.
But at the same time, I think even the sort of the harshest critics that have talked about, maybe the CG wasn't really up to par, or the storytelling was a little, disorderly. But at the same time, everybody's sort of talked about how the energy of the film. Also, you have actors like Cho In-sung, Hwang Jung-min, Jung Ho-young, and you have an international cast. You have Michael Fassbender and also Alicia Vikander. These are like big stars who have like been in other like Hollywood movies, like the Marvel franchise and all that stuff. So having these international casts is also helping with this movie, and I think. It's just, I see on YouTube what's funny is like people reacting just to the trailer. Oh. Just saying like, wow, this is like, because it's just, the trailer's really well made. Of course, it doesn't really show you the creature per se, but I think it kind of adds to the mystique. And I'm hoping with he has more time to edit and do post-production on it. So the criticism about the bad VFX could be fixed by the time the movie comes out, I guess in July in Korea.
Yeah, we did report on it yesterday or the day before yesterday that he does plan to refine it. He said in his.
I mean, he was rushed to send it to Cannes. So.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. But nevertheless, do you think we can actually hope for a Palme d'Or, just like Parasite by director Bong Joon-ho?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because, the Cannes Film Festival is kind of, the jury really kind of determines who wins. And we have the hopes with director Park Chan-wook as the president of the jury, and yet, he wants to be fair, and I don't think he will show any kind of favoritism per se. But I think what I really find fascinating about Na Hong-jin's film is that, Cannes used to be more of kind of an arty kind of, they would give, like big awards to sort of movies that weren't exactly commercial movies. But now it's kind of switching its gears a little bit. And I think in some ways, this is the most expensive Korean movie that's ever been made. But the way they look at it is kind of like another cult film. And it likens back to, like Bong Joon-ho's The Host, which was another like a monster movie back in the day that was a huge hit domestically, but in the West they saw it as like this cult movie, like an expensive cult movie, things like that. So I think audiences are also, I think it's showing as Park Chan-wook as the jury president that Korean movies are taken really seriously now. It's not just a niche kind of like, some culture that makes good movies, but I think it's sort of like, how K-pop and K-dramas are taken seriously all around the world. K-movies now have a presence, I think, at any festival, and everybody takes sort of like, the press, the audience, they're really excited to see it. So I think hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll have a good chance at winning. But I think I'm hoping he might get the Best Director award, at least. Yeah.
I mean, Director Na has been a filmmaker that Cannes has been paying consistently attention to. We'll have to see.
Yeah. And everyone keeps saying that Park Chan-wook being the director of this jury may be an advantage, but I could also see it as a disadvantage as well, where he feels a little bit of pressure of bias, and he may not give as much of a higher score as he wants to, just so he doesn't look like he's giving the Korean film more credit than it maybe deserves. But anyway, we're already on the subject of Park Chan-wook. Following his Best Director win for Decision to Leave back in 2022, he has now become the very first Korean jury president at Cannes, in Cannes history, and has also received what's called France's Commander in Order of Arts and Letters. How do you interpret Park's long-standing relationship with Cannes?
Well, he's been a favorite of that festival. His movie Old Boy was recognized there, and then, movies like The Handmaiden, and also, like No Other Choice or Decision to Leave have always sort of had a spot there. So, and I heard from, a lot of news reports that Director Park also said, he's not only just honored to be the jury president, also, receiving the award, but he feels that it's time for him to give back to the French sort of like art world or the cinema world, and the French really love movies. So it's a sort of like a two-way love story that's happening. And he's even joked that he might make a movie in French, the French language, and I would love to see that because, again, like that generation, Director Park, he really was influenced by the French New Wave. Classic French cinema has really influenced so many great directors, and his works show parts of that. But after all, he's one of the directors where his movies are very complex, layered narratives that I think any cinema in the world have always thought this guy has the stuff, is recognized as one of the best directors. So, his stay at Cannes, it seems not at all out of place. Yeah.
All right, Professor So, that's all the time we have today. Thank you very much for your insights as always, and have a fantastic weekend. And also, please follow the results of Cannes over the weekend.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Thank you very much. And thank you, Walter, as always. So we're going to have you back here next week.
See you soon.